almost all-stars. In other words, borderline all-star caliber players who probably could make the team in most other years. But they're unfortunately stuck in a time period where they're getting outclassed by better players at their position, and thus have not been nominated as an all-star, despite their incredible play throughout their careers. Or maybe their team just sucks. Historically, the greatest almost all-star has been Mike Conley. For many years he held this title, but with his inclusion in the 2021 All-Star Game, that's no longer the case. He's finally off the list. But let's talk about the guys who should be on this list. Anyway, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today, let's talk about the 8 best almost all-stars in the NBA right now. Some of these guys have been dominating for a long time, and yet still haven't been selected to a single all-star game. While I don't like saying all of them got snubbed, since there's a lot of competition these days, but for some guys, they might have deserved it in certain years. Without further ado, let's begin. Also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe. Apparently, over 60% of my viewers aren't, which is kinda surprising. But hey, if you like the content, drop a sub or a like, and thank you so much for the support. Number 8, De'Aaron Fox. Fox is the youngest guy on this list, with the least number of years under his belt. But in the short time he's been in the league, he's been fantastic. For the past few years, he has a legitimate case to make the All-Star team. And in 2021, this time I thought his time would come, because the Kings aren't terrible anymore. He's putting up great numbers and quickly became the de facto leader of the team. I'd say over the last decade or so, he's the only draft pick the Kings made that actually panned out. Ever since Cousins came along, the Kings have failed to build around their star, and every year they get a high draft pick, and every year they end up drafting a bust. Fox is the first guy since Cousins who has a real shot to lead this franchise to the playoffs. Once that happens, and if he keeps up this level of play, he'll be off this list in the near future. Number 7, John Collins. Like Fox, Collins is still relatively young and still considered a new guy on the block. But also like Fox, he's been making a strong case to be an all-star. While this season has been kinda rough for him mentally, previously he was putting up like 20 and 10. Those are the type of numbers that you want from your center. It's like kind of a threshold we have for big men. If you average 20 and 10, that's an all-star caliber player. Not only that, but offensively, Collins is such a versatile scorer. He can shoot threes, he can post up and face up. He's as good of a rebounder as anyone else. The Atlanta Hawks have also been in the playoff race for most of the year, but due to his slow start, he couldn't make the cut. The Hawks had some mishaps early in the season, but now Collins will be a strong all-star contender for years to come, as the team continues to make progress. Number 6, Clint Capela. For many years, Capela was the go-to pick-and-roll guy in Houston. A lot of people thought, oh, he was just a product of D'Antoni's system, or a beneficiary of James Harden. Either way, Capela has proven to be his own man. He's having a career season in Atlanta, even leading the entire NBA in rebounds, and also near the top in offensive rebounds with nearly 5 per game. Not only that, but he's still super efficient, and a quick mobile center on defense is something that every team wants. Capela fills that niche. When it comes to raw numbers, here's a comparison between Capela's career stats and Gobert's career stats. On paper, they're strikingly similar, although defensively, Gobert has always been better. Capela's defense is still a work in progress. Through the years, he never had the same defensive IQ or awareness of other elite defenders. Rotations were sometimes slow, and he got a lot of flack for it back in Houston. However, he's still pretty damn good, still one of the best current players to not be an all-star. Number 5, Myles Turner. Quote, Turner, who never seems to avoid trade rumors, is back on the rumor mill as the trade deadline looms. His presence on the defensive end cannot be overstated, but his struggles with consistency on the offensive end have him torn amongst Pacers fans. This has been the dilemma with Myles Turner for basically his entire career. And his career has been quite interesting. Once thought of as the guy who would take the mantle after the departure of Paul George, Turner is simply not that guy. He's not the type of guy to carry an offense or build your team around. He's more suited to be a complementary piece, and while we've been waiting for years for him to blow up and make a massive jump, instead, he stayed consistent and plays within his own skill sets. It was his front court partner, Sabonis, who became the unexpected cornerstone of the franchise. It's Turner who the Pacers organization believe is expendable. Year after year, we've heard his name in trade rumors. They've quietly listened to what other teams are offering. Ever since Frank Vogel was here, there were always trade rumors surrounding Turner even then. Regardless, he's still here. He's still playing like how he usually plays. Perhaps his numbers don't stick out as being all-star caliber, but he's led the league in blocks for 2 separate seasons. His value on defense is more than just blocks too. When he sits out, the Pacers' defense suffers a lot. For example, in this current season, the Pacers hold opponents to a 109.7 offensive rating when Turner is on the floor. But when Turner is on the bench, opponents register a 116 offensive rating. If Turner was completely gone, the Pacers would literally be a bottom 3 defensive team. With him, they hover around the middle of the pack, 15th or 16th. That's a significant difference though. Turner doesn't have any eye-popping numbers besides the blocks, but you can't underestimate his importance to the team. He's the anchor, he's the heart and soul, he's the engine that keeps him going. You don't need to be an excessive scorer to be an all-star, and Turner's impact has to be recognized. Number 4, Jamal Murray. Murray has been absolutely killing it. Actually, he's been so good for a while now that I'm still surprised he's not an all-star yet. The Western Conference, especially for guards, has been a bloodbath. It's been that way for decades. If you're not in the highest, most elite tier of guards, you won't be selected. Sadly, Murray is just a tad bit below that tier. The thing with him is, he's always recognized more for being a playoff performer. If you compare his numbers in the regular season to his playoff numbers, it's such a massive difference. If all-star selections took into account your previous playoff performance, Murray would have definitely made it by now. In the 2020 playoffs, he was the go-to guy, the leading scorer of the team, even ahead of Jokic. And like always, he delivered. Murray has always been an intriguing part of the Denver Nuggets. It's obvious he's their second best player, and everyone knows that. But he's still somewhat overshadowed by Jokic, at least in the regular season. It's like a big brother, little brother effect. Just by being on a championship contending team for the foreseeable future, Murray will, without question, become an all-star sooner or later. Number 3, Tobias Harris. Similar to Murray, Harris has been amazing for a long time, but also gets overshadowed by his own teammates. This was the year where I truly thought he'd get in. The Sixers have been at the top of the conference for basically the entire year. Harris is at the peak of his career, everything about his game has gotten better. It's been like this for a while, honestly. Harris has always been a borderline 20-point per game scorer, and he could probably make it if he was the go-to guy. He took it as a snub, and used it as further motivation. When a reporter asked him what he thought about not getting voted in, Harris responded, "Me and Doc talked about it. I just told him, look, I got a bounty out for coaches that didn't vote for me, or the national media that skipped over me. You move on with life, and it won't be the first time I'll be in contention to be an all-star." That's how I look at it. Number 2, Lou Williams. When it comes to the greatest sixth man of all time, Lou is definitely in contention for that title. In his career that spanned over 15 seasons, he's maintained a similar level of consistency. The spark he brings off the bench is something that every team wants and needs. In some years, especially recently, I feel like he should have been an all-star. Of course, nowadays, it seems like his career is on the downswing, so I don't think he has much left in the tank. But there were a few years where he had a real chance to get in, with the Clippers. In fact, many other NBA stars believed Lou should have gotten in 2018 or 2019. He expressed his own frustration after his snub in 2018, where he averaged about 23 points per game by the All-Star break. He even showed his support for other players who got snubbed over the years, and questioned the criteria and what the voters are really looking for. part of it might be his role. I mean, we rarely ever see all-stars from the bench to begin with, and the backcourt positions are stacked. Every time someone says, "Oh man, this guy should have made the all-star team a few times." But then you ask them, so who do you take out? There's only 26 players total who can make it, and maybe if you're lucky, a few of them could be injured and you can slide in as a replacement. It's just unfortunate. Lue played in an era with so many talented guards that happened to be better than him. With that point in mind, this brings us to number 1, CJ McCollum. In my opinion, he's the new Mike Conley, insanely good player, very overlooked because he's overshadowed by his own teammates. Actually, McCollum was balling out prior to his foot injury. So if he continued that same trajectory, maybe he would have made the 2021 All-Star game. Either way, everyone knows how good he is. With 6 straight seasons of putting up at least 20 points per game and being a cornerstone of the Blazers, it's hard to believe it's only Dame who's been getting nominated. I mean, the Blazers have always been a playoff team during that time too, with some 50-win seasons, so it's not like he's getting knocked down due to team success. His teams have always been successful. Like I mentioned, it's just the effect of being a guard in a very tough conference. Unfortunately, McCollum is approaching his 30s. There's also a lot of young up-and-coming guards waiting their turn, so I'm not sure if he'll ever make an All-Star team, even if he's playing better than ever. The Blazers would have to be, like, the number 1 seed of the West for him to make it. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 8 current NBA players who were almost All-Stars. Throughout their careers, they've had their chances to make it, but just a hair short. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Which player on this list will be the first one to make the All-Star game? Which other current players did I miss? Which other borderline All-Stars deserve to be on this list? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.